Hello, everybody, and welcome to ITFA Insights podcast latest episode, and what might be one of the more exciting episodes in the podcast series, if I do say so myself. I'm Anton Posner, part of the member of the ITFA Americas Advisory Board, based in Florida, a New Yorker who just recently fled to Florida, that is. So we'd like to welcome everyone to the ITFA Insights podcast series. I think we're on episode or a few episodes in, and excited about what we have coming up and what we're going to be doing in the future. Me, my colleague at ITFA, Maria Tapia, based in Bolivia. We've been working on an exciting series of podcast topics in trade and finance, risk management, supply chain for our members in the greater world of global trade. Today's episode, I'm going to be interviewing for my first time ever interviewing somebody after being interviewed so many times in my life. I'm going to be interviewing my friend and an expert in the world of domestic and the North American steel industry, Rajuda Day at Fast Markets, based in the New York area. And I'm gonna turn it over to Rajuda. I've known Rajuda for many years. She writes extensively on topics on the steel and metals trade. And today we're going to be talking about the changes that we're already starting to see in what's happening in the steel industry in the United States with the new administration coming aboard in January. So, Rajuda, welcome. I'd love for you to give a quick intro on yourself and what you're up to at Fast Markets. Probably better than I just did.
No, you did a great job, Anton. And we just reversed roles, right? I was the one interviewing you all these years.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I'm a reporter. I'm a senior reporter at Fast Markets, which is a global price reporting agency. I live in New York City, and I cover the North American steel trade here in New York City. Uh, we have been very busy, very busy since Trump's first presidency. And now that he's coming back again, even before he's taken office, we have just been writing a lot about, what changes he's going to bring forth, and changes that he is already affecting with his social media posts. I thought it would be an interesting thing to talk about, highlighting the work that Fast Markets does as a price reporting agency, and also my role in it. Um, we we primarily price different kinds of commodities, and my team, we price all kinds of steel products. I I price a lot of flat rolled steel products, including hot rolled coil, which is the basic commodity, which when people say the price of steel, they mean the price of hot rolled coil. Um, and just today, I wrote this massive story because everything happens when Trump starts tweeting things, and now it's not about Trump, this story, but yesterday a news report came out that Biden is expected to officially block the acquisition of US steel by Nippon Steel. So, yeah, I just finished writing the story about half an hour ago before jumping.
Yeah, so very current, and certainly that was going to be one of the things that I wanted us to talk about.
Mhm.
That it seems, am I right, that it seems like there hasn't been much distance between both administrations on their opinion of the Nippon Steel acquisition, or the acquisition that may or may not take place, right? We're not seeing a big discrepancy in what the Biden administration has been talking about publicly in terms of its support or lack of support for the acquisition, and the Trump administration has not come forward with anything strongly supporting the acquisition. But am I on target on that? What's your thoughts on what that difference is between the two?
Okay, so something I would like to mention that the Biden administration has not been different from the uh, previous Trump administration in their policies relating to steel.
Hmm.
And it's something very interesting, They might diverge on other policy issues, but when it comes to steel trade, um, the Biden administration has been continuing the protectionist measures that help the domestic steel producers.
Hmm.
And this was something that, the Trump administration started with when they imposed tariffs under Section 232, 25% tariffs on steel imported into the US and 10% tariffs on aluminum imported
Hmm.
into the US. And the Biden administration, not only did they continue the Section 232 tariffs, they have in fact strengthened it. Um, and also, the Biden administration has been pretty, just this year, I don't know if it was the timing because of an election year or what, but they have, strengthened other protectionist measures against China, and not just on steel, all kinds of, protectionist measures. So the coronavirus pandemic basically exposed the fault lines of an extremely fluid global trade economy, right?
Hmm.
When the world
Yeah.
shut down and all those factories shut down, it was glaringly obvious what depending on a factory oceans away and continents away means. If you are suddenly not able to access that anymore.
Mhm.
So from that onwards, there has been a growing trend of onshoring, nearshoring, trying to reinvigorate the manufacturing sector in the US. So in that case, the Biden administration has been very strong in their support.
Hmm.
Um, what is different in Trump's case is that he's been extremely vocal about tariffs of all kinds,
Yeah.
and then he's also been just a couple of weeks ago he threatened tariffs as a negotiating tool against trade partners Canada and Mexico, and basically lumping them together, which then provoked all kinds of headlines uh, across the world. um, we wrote a very extensive stories on that. What does it mean if he's going to impose blanket tariffs on all kinds of imports, um, from anything that comes in from those countries. I'm sure this. Mexico is a
Hmm.
massive source of agriculture products. uh,
Hmm.
you know and
We need
then
our avocados, Rajuta, right? We need our avocados. If this country cannot make avocado toast, we might have a revolution on our hands.
exactly, exactly. And didn't Trump, go on a news show and say that he's not going to be able to say for sure that costs will not go up for the average
Hmm.
American, which is something that
Right.
economists keep saying.
Hmm.
As long as tariffs are used like in a strategic manner and used as a negotiating tool or to press on pain points of certain countries, that is different. But if you say I'm going to put tariffs on everything, and then and also the way the USMCA works, you know it's fluid. The boundaries are fluid. The automotive industries, for example, they have their manufacturing is divided in a way that some parts might be made into in Canada or in Mexico and then be shipped over
Hmm.
to the US as a final product. If you start putting tariffs on each of those, the cost of an average car can go up significantly.
Yeah.
So again, that is one more story that we are currently working on.
Hmm.
So he sits on Truth Social and then says these things, and he's not even taken office, and he has increased all our work
Right. Yeah.
significantly. But
Keeping everyone.
coming to Nippon Steel, that is something
Yeah.
I have to say this, the opposition to the acquisition has nothing to do with what it means on paper, because
Hmm.
Nippon Steel has been promising significant investments in US Steel's old assets. I'm not talking about Big River Steel, which is shiny new
Hmm.
electric arc furnace producer. I'm talking about old blast furnace
Yeah, it's
assets
the old blast furnace, right?
which haven't seen much investments in them. And David Burritt, who is the CEO of US Steel, he said that if we don't get Nippon's cash injections, we might have to shut down those assets and we might have to move away from Pittsburgh. Um,
Hmm.
so the opposition to US Steel being bought by a Japanese steelmaker has always been political, I feel. And also the labor union, the USW labor union, has been extremely against it from the very beginning.
Hmm. Which is,
And
am I right that a surprise about the union being against it? I mean, no doubt the Steelworkers Union has their reasons why they're against it. But what is the union saying as to what the opposite, why the opposition to why the steelworkers opposition?
I think the broad opposition came from I'm sure you were not following it the way the steel people were following it. Cleveland Cliffs was supposed to be one of the people, one of those companies who were bidding on US Steel. And the union had thrown their support behind Cleveland Cliffs.
Hmm.
And Cleveland Cliffs, they were not the winner. Nippon Steel was the winner. I think USW was really taken aback by Nippon emerging as the winner. And then
Hmm.
their main bone of contention was, you are saying you're going to invest like billions of dollars, but just we are not going to believe you just because you're saying
Hmm.
it, and also the holding organization who is going to execute these provisions. It's not directly Nippon Steel, it's a subsidiary of Nippon Steel. And
Hmm.
Nippon Steel has made so many promises that we will not move, we will not change the name, we will not move from the iconic
Hmm.
headquarters in Pittsburgh. It'll remain American made and American run. We will not, they even said things like, we will uh, not compete with it with our imports. They made all kinds of provisions. And just yesterday, they even came out with a press release saying, hey, if the deal closes, each US Steel employee will get $5,000. And USW has just been like, countering everything.
It's
They came out saying, oh, that's bribery. Now they've come down to bribery. No, it has
yeah.
this kind of opposition. Everybody was opposed to it. US Steel, sorry, Biden was opposed to it. Trump said, I'm going to block it. Kamala Harris, during her
Hmm.
election, rallies, she said US Steel should remain American owned. Yeah,
Hmm.
unfortunately for this situation, it is not, the opposition to it is not related to the facts of the matter.
Shocking that something might be political and not fact related. That might be the first time ever in American history that that was the case.
I know it
I
is
don't know. Probably never happened
massively
before.
shocking. Yeah.
We could probably talk about that and talk more about Cleveland Cliffs and Lorenzo Gonzalez's the fact that he's very quiet and not outspoken about anything about like this too. So we could go on forever on that particular topic. But yeah, definitely more to come there, right?
Oh yeah,
As
definitely. Oh yeah,
this saga progresses and the new
yeah.
administration comes in. It just, to me, it seems like the Trump administration has been very vocal about wanting overseas companies to invest in American manufacturing. This seems to fit the model in some ways, in most ways, right? So, well, let's see
That's
if the
true.
money is where the mouth is, right? Is put where the mouth is, as they say. But changing topics. So let's talk and on some of the things that you and I talked about in preparation for the podcast. We spoke about the Inflation Reduction Act, the IRA, and how the new administration is going to see its continuation, right, and further advancement under that act. So, want to get your thoughts on how that might play out, or what the thought is in the market on that as it
Okay.
relates to IRA.
Um, One more thing about the Biden administration was, how much federal money they have put uh, you know, into the infrastructure of the country, and all kinds of infrastructure, be it clean energy, be it, rebuilding old bridges, roads. Then there are requirements for, clean raw materials that will go into these projects, American material, American made, melted,
Mhm.
those kind of things, provisions like, and all the tax incentives you get under these different federal bills. A lot of the beneficiaries of these projects, they happen to be Republican states. For
Mhm.
example, Ohio is one big state. Georgia is another big state. I'm not talking specifically about the Inflation Reduction Act. I'm also talking about all kinds of the Chips and Science Act. All the massive battery plants which have been
Mhm.
announced. That's going to hire so many people. It's going to create new jobs. It's going to boost demand for all kinds of materials, including steel. We always are
Mhm.
covering
Yeah.
things from the angle of steel.
Mhm.
uh, and I have seen news reports of Republican, prominent members of the Republican Party who've said, "Hey, we are going to protect the IRA from being taken away because it's helping our constituents."
Mhm.
So it, and
It's true that a lot of them that voted against it have taken credit for some of the projects that have come through. They end up on sometimes, and it's not just a Republican thing. Democrats do it also, right? But you see politicians uh, taking credit for things in campaign material that they actually voted against when it was up for vote, right? Which is fantastic. So not to diverge there on the side, but. Mhm.
I'm just curious to see if that will actually happen. Will they, like part of the money has already in the system. What
Mhm.
happens to the part which is not yet released? Will they
Yeah.
actually stop doing that just because it was under a previous administration? I'm not sure because the ultimate beneficiaries are not, divided
Mhm.
among party lines.
Right.
So, and this is significant money we're talking about. We're talking about long-term projects,
Mhm.
and all these projects ostensibly will strengthen the American economy and especially make it less reliant on public enemy number one, China.
Mhm. Our
uh
global adversary.
yeah. um,
Right.
I mean, that was the stated benefits of these different federal acts
Mhm.
that the Biden administration undertook. um, so I don't know, like personally I would be really, maybe I'm not as cynical as I should be. I would be
Yeah.
really surprised if they, like, turn off the money supply just
Mhm.
because of the origins of these federal bills.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, things that are directly benefiting their constituents, are they
Mhm.
going to be
Yeah.
vocal to protect it, even though it was, as you said, right, put in place by a prior administration from a different
Yeah.
party. So yeah.
And for example, I went for a recent steel conference. Oh, I think it was the Atlanta one, and I was, this was just before the elections, and I was going around asking about who they think would win, and it was pretty unanimous among the steel market participants that they all would have voted for Trump, and they wanted him back
Mhm.
because they think he's better for the industry. He's better, like, he's the strong man. I heard that word multiple times during my canvassing.
Mhm.
But they also, in the same breath, they also said, hey, you know what? We are seeing a lot of extra demand from these projects that were not there for 4 5 years ago, like all these
Mhm.
new factories being built, all these renewable energy projects, like solar energy, wind energy. A lot of steel is required for these projects, and
Mhm.
we didn't have
Yeah.
this till very recently. So they
Yeah.
also admitted that while they were telling me, of course, Trump will be better. So
Mhm.
if something that is making money for the market participants and is creating long-term demand. Uh, I don't know if the new administration, Trump's incoming administration, will want to kill that off. I'm not sure.
Yeah. I know what the answer is, Regina. Actually, it will be like NAFTA. We'll just rename it, and that way it becomes something new, right? But all kidding aside, talk about as part of that, right? And you alluded to it also, decarbonization efforts, right? Environmental elements of the IRA, right? This is going to be something that's going to be, no doubt, right? A big focus on the new administration
Yeah.
on rolling back some of the requirements of not only Inflation Reduction Act, but also other elements of government, right, in terms of industrial policy as it relates to decarbonization and environmental issues. So I think this is a loaded question, right? Right, but what's the thoughts on that? As if we haven't already answered the question, right?
Um,
But
okay.
what other insight besides the obvious? Um,
Okay, so this is again one of those questions that we have been asking our market participants since
mhm,
the election results became clear. And many of them said yes, there'll be a relaxing or rollback on the federal level, but the state level, rules will remain. For example, California with its rules about
mhm,
the environmental regulations, their stance on electric vehicles, tax breaks
mhm,
on that, that's a state matter. So on the state, yeah, I think the federal requirements will definitely will see some kind of relaxing. Uh,
mhm. Yeah.
and I don't know where that puts the whole decarbonization movement at, because even the US industry had begun to, walk the talk about reducing their carbon impact.
Mhm,
Um, and one of their, often stated, you know, you know, point is that, hey, we are already cleaner than the rest of the
mhm,
world because more than 70% of our production, steel production, is via electric arc furnaces
mhm.
that primarily uses
Right.
scrap
Mhm,
steel instead of, like melting iron ore to make steel.
mhm.
So we are better off than the others. So, why should we be punished? You know, if when you see us like, in a global
Right.
context. But despite that, the truth of the matter is that change, the climate change is a very real threat for the entire world. And all kinds of economies should continue working on trying to reduce their carbon impact.
Mhm,
I don't know, last time Trump was in office, he pulled us out of the Paris Climate Accord, and then Biden rejoined it. And I don't know, what will happen,
yeah.
but
You're,
again, a lot of money is already flowing in the system, uh, decarbonize, different aspects of steel making.
mhm,
uh, we talked about Cleveland Cliffs before. Cliffs and another other steel producers, they've been given Department of Energy grants, to decarbonize their steel making.
mhm.
So will that stop? I don't know.
Right.
Can it stop? I'm not sure, you know. But
Yep.
definitely there were, like, especially in the last 4 years, there was we witnessed a massive, shift towards talking about decarbonization and then taking actual steps to decarbonize the
Mhm,
steel supply chain. So we we don't know what will happen. The companies have invested quite a bit of money to do what they say they will do. So will they stop now or will they slow down? Not
mhm.
sure, but we'll
Yeah,
find out.
it's going to be significant topic. Upcoming steel events and discussions this is going to continue, no doubt. And I
Mhm.
think we're
Yes.
going to see it, no doubt, being a big topic as new administration comes in, and not just in the world of steel, right? As we know, it's going to be across the board
Mhm.
in every every manufacturing sector. So,
Yeah,
yep.
definitely.
Yeah, more to come on that. Well, yeah, let's switch over to another topic that we spoke about in preparation for today, and that affects not only the steel industry but metals, commodities as a whole, retail goods, and everything else. The situation with the upcoming expiration of the armistice that's in place at the moment between the U.S. Maritime Exchange and the International Longshoremen's Association on the
Mhm.
U.S. East Coast and U.S. Gulf port labor situation. So something near and dear to my heart as a logistics guy who used to work at Port Newark as a young kid fresh out of New York Maritime College, planning the stowage on container ships and working with the Union longshoremen then.
Mhm.
So right now, the after a couple of days of a strike, a walkout, the Biden administration got them back to work, got a pretty significant, I think, a 60+% wage increase agreed to between the ship owning group, the USMX, and the International Longshoremen's Association,
Mhm.
but leaving the issue of automation and the threat of automation against longshoremen jobs as an open item to be handled by January 15th, I believe, right? So this is going to be coming up. It's going to be a topic I'm going to be asked about a lot over the next several weeks as the media storm builds on this. So, what are you hearing in the world of steel and metals on this topic, and in the world, the broader world, right? Not just in the commodities world, but
Okay. So before I began covering steel, I was covering base metals, you know.
Mhm.
And anybody who knows anything about global trade knows that, more than 90% of it is happening via shipping, global trade of all kinds. Um, as soon as the strike began, we wrote a story about, what kind of price impacts it can have.
Mhm.
Uh, and the price impact isn't just because of, like, or this kind of steel could not come into the country. It's going to affect everything. It's going to affect the entire supply chain. So
Mhm.
whether or not you are a domestic steel producer happily just making steel here, if your end customer cannot, get the other parts he needs to make his final product, the cost of the product is going to go up. So we were not surprised to see that the president had to step in and then, basically stop that from spiraling, because it was going to disrupt, um, any kind of port closures will disrupt all kinds of,
Mhm.
trade, not just steel trade. Um, so that was quickly averted. But while we were writing those stories, we did ask about, what can the impact on, if it doesn't get sorted out in January, what can the impact be? And very disgruntled traders said, "Oh, we are going to go to the non-union ports," you know.
Not with containers,
And,
they're not. No,
some
no.
of them said that. Some of them were like, "Yeah, what are they expecting? Like, automation is coming for all our jobs," including ours. Like, I'm a writer, and
I don't know.
and
I'm not. AI is not ready to take over journalism on steel and metals. I think not quite, Regina, but
I mean, the press release kind of things, yes, but the kind of, like, niche information that we need to have is different.
let's
Uh,
see, the day that I get a call from an AI bot asking me questions off the record to feed into an article, I'll let you know the day I get that phone call. But I got a feeling that's a little ways away before
I
that
hope so.
before
I
that
hope
personal touch of journalism is going to
so.
be grabbed by artificial intelligence. But let's see.
Yeah. Well, no,
They're going to be playing
automation.
this back like years from now and going, look how silly Anton was for dismissing it, right? Like in this video. Sorry. Go ahead.
Um, no, automation is different from AI, but
Mhm,
like the whole, the pace of change that has been and will be brought on
mhm,
by, the impact of AI on all aspects of uh, life.
mhm,
I don't think I'm smart enough to even understand how massive that can be, how much it can change all our lives. I mean, had we seen what kind of impact the internet was going to have on all our lives, like, 40 years ago? No, we didn't,
mhm.
right? Uh, but people who are smarter than me and who are writing these things, they say it is going to be even more disruptive than that. Um, while talking about the workers resisting automation in their jobs, something that a source of ours brought up was that actually increases safety in operations. So why are you so opposed to it? These are really thorny topics. Also, as reporters, we really can't project our views, our personal views on the matter. But our sources overwhelmingly, they were really disgruntled that,
Mhm,
they were holding up work and trade because of, you know, salary issues and the fact that they didn't want the
mhm,
machines to take over. But the machines have been taking over steadily for many, many years.
mhm.
So I don't know how effective they're going to be. And
Yeah.
also, this issue is important enough that any administration will step in, because
Yep.
it really will. If it drags on, the
Mhm.
impact is massive. The
Right.
impact is massive.
And this is what same thing I was telling our clients at the time during as it led up to the work stoppage. During the work stoppage, I kept telling everyone, this is not going to last. It's going to be addressed. There's no way Biden administration is going to allow this to happen for any significant amount of days, particularly a month before the election. At that point,
Hmm.
it was right about the fact that the administration would step in. I didn't necessarily predict that they were going to kick the can down the road. How and even more so, the date is awkward, right? 5 days before the inauguration, which would have thought that if we would have kicked the can down the road to a date after the inauguration, but at that point he had no idea who was going to win. But yeah, this date is really interesting, right? In terms of in terms of how it relates to the change of administration, because it could be in the middle of of a mess at that point during that particular time, right? And um, so yeah, this timing is very interesting.
Oh, definitely, it'll be Biden's burden to carry, because he's
Hmm.
he wants his legacy to be this pro-union president who always supports the workers,
Hmm.
but he's also the president of the United States.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
And, and
We'll see what he
and
does.
Trump has been during that work stoppage too. He was pretty vocal in support of the longshoremen's union also. So
It was also
yeah.
just before the elections. So
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, another fascinating one that's going to be coming up as we head into the new year. Quiet January coming ahead for us, right,
I
Virginia?
can't
So
believe how much there is to write
I
about.
during that work stoppage, the phone calls from media and clients checking in about what was going on, what we thought was going to happen, how it was going to affect break bulk shipments, the non-containerized shipments, right? It was pretty busy during that time. Pretty
What
busy.
were your projections, like, if it suppose goes on for 1 week, like what's the financial impact of that 1 month?
If,
Oh my God,
if it goes,
unimaginable.
I think that if it goes on, it's not going to go on for long, right? Just like you said, there's
Mm.
just no way because you're going to have the shelves emptied in a lot of, on a lot of goods, right? It's not
Mm.
going to be, no, it's not going to be milk and eggs. They don't move on container ships from overseas, right? People freak out about that. It's not going to be paper towels. We're not importing paper towels and toilet paper from overseas. That's domestically produced, but it's going to be a lot of things that are on the shelves of Target and Walmart and so forth, and it's going to affect everything, even the ships that are carrying goods that are non-containerized, even though that labor isn't necessarily going to be walking off the job. But these ships are going to be what we saw during the initial work stoppage was some ships diverting to Canada, to Halifax, for example.
Mm.
But that cost, if you discharge containers in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and to move them down into the US, you're talking about a massive cost, right? In terms of what it's gonna lay on top. No, not to mention that a port like Halifax or some of those other ports can't handle the volume of ships that were headed to New York, New Jersey, Norfolk, Savannah, Charleston. Some of those ports can't handle the size of those ships. So those ships are going to probably go to anchor and wait, and it's going to add more cost on it. It's going to drive up the cost of ocean freight across the board. It's going to give the steamship lines more ability to raise rates and
Mm.
take advantage of some of the situation. However, back to what you said, right? That it just can't go on long because while while the average person might not understand just how much it's going to affect their day-to-day, their daily lives, it's going to massively affect their daily lives if it drags on for more than a few days. So we're going to see quick action, and it's going to be almost to the point of an emergency. It will be an emergency to deal
Mhm.
with that. Um, I don't want to dive too deep into it, right? But when I was 22 years old and I graduated from New York Maritime College, my first job was working for Neptune Orient Lines, it's a Singaporean container line, and I was at Port Newark planning out as a non-union employee, planning out the stowage on container ships, and I was working very closely with the ILA labor there, and at the time I was using colored pencils to plan out the stow on a piece of paper for each ship. I would shade in by colors Singapore, Hong Kong, Keelung, Taiwan, and
I love
and
that, Anton.
yeah, and then I would write in the letters for each port, and then I would fax the stow plan to the other ports, to Norfolk and Charleston and Halifax, and that's how they would get it. And then the longshoreman labor that I was working with in Port Newark were using little stickers to put on a piece of paper to represent where I had planned those containers to go. And they were putting the stickers on, and the longshoreman there, and this is 1992, Rajuda. Two of the longshoremen there, ILA checkers that were putting the stickers on the paper. This is a Universal Terminal Port Newark, owned by Maersk Lines. They invited me to lunch one day as a 22-year-old and took me out to a Portuguese restaurant in the Ironbound section in Newark. And I had no idea why I was getting invited out to lunch. Sure, lunch, free lunch, what the hell? And at lunch, they started asking me if what was going on about changeover from the stickers and the colored pencils to computerized stow, and how if I saw anything that might affect how many jobs were going to be allocated to the longshoremen because the colored pencils were probably going to go away soon. 1992 for Judah, and I had my first interaction on port automation with the longshoremen. So there you go.
Interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah, so that's my story. But well, let's start winding down. But any other big picture topics? Any other key items on steel, metals, or
Oof.
commodity trade to kind of throw out there? Maybe something to tease for the next episode, Virginia, right? Like something to throw out there, say we could tackle on the next one, or we really need to plan on coming back to catch up on this a few months down the road because everything that we just talked about is going to have is going to have some further
Development.
momentum,
Yeah,
right? Hmm.
definitely. Um, I think just in terms of protectionism, regionalism,
Hmm.
um, deglobalization. These are very interesting and long-term trends I see through the lens of the steel industry, but I think you can say that about any other, industry as well, you know,
Hmm.
which I think will continue under the new administration. Um, if it helps like create more domestic jobs and manufacture things closer to home, better for the environment, you
Hmm.
know but what does it mean for long entrenched supply chains? uh, I'm curious to see which way it'll go.
Yeah.
And also, like the word electric vehicle was like so hot, uh, just 3 4 years ago. It's not that hot anymore, you know
No, doesn't seem to
uh,
be.
yeah.
Yeah.
And also to like, this is like, going to other materials, but battery raw materials,
Hmm.
with China saying, hey, you can't take our nice stuff if you don't let us like, sell things to you. Uh, I think it'll be really interesting
Yeah.
the next
Maybe
4 years.
maybe the next episode we're going to do, Rajuta, is going to be long-term securing of critical natural resources and the U.S. Ability and willingness to take on strategic adversaries, right, is the word we use, right? Strategic
Mhm.
adversaries in our uh, in the ability to develop supply chain infrastructure in parts of the world where those critical natural resources are coming from, like China has been doing and doing well in terms of from iron ore to copper to bauxite, right, and every other critical mineral in between.
Mhm.
So there's a whole nother episode
Yeah,
being
definitely.
crafted there, right? And one of my favorite topics, right?
Yeah.
Biden was just in Angola for the
I was
Lobito
about to bring that up.
corridor,
Yeah.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
and in terms of in order to provide to building a railroad and a port operation to be able to source copper and I think it was cobalt also was the other thing coming out of DRC, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, another favorite topic. So we'll tee that up for the future, but big thank you, Rajuta, for coming on and for putting up with my first attempt at playing host and interviewer.
You are a natural, Anton. Also helps that we are friends,
Don't
you know.
don't let my wife hear you say she'll go after you for feeding into any ego that I might have. So
No, this is great. Thank you, Anton. And I
yeah.
hope it's useful,
Mhm.
to whoever is going to listen to this interview. It's useful for them. It's
Mhm.
relevant for them. So that's what
Yeah.
I'm hoping
Well,
for.
now the next job is you and I are going to shamelessly promote this podcast over the next couple of weeks. Yeah, that's the next
Love
phase
to do
is
that. I would love to,
yeah.
raise brand awareness for my company and for
Mhm.
myself. So I would love to do that. Yeah.
I am fully expecting Fast Markets to help promote. So
Oh yeah,
let's
definitely. That's
yeah,
that's
let's get Raju and the team moving on this. We're gonna do
yeah.
some promotion on this.
Yeah.
I'm speaking at Fast Markets Bauxite and Alumina Conference in April in Miami.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
gonna moderate the freight panel at
Oh,
the conference
nice.
in Miami.
Nice.
So already doing some crossover, having you here. I'm gonna be moderating the panel, so I'm putting together the freight panel for the conference, working with Sophie in London.
That's great.
Yep.
Oh, I
Yeah.
wish, I wish I was still doing aluminum, but I'm not. These days, my conferences take me to Atlanta, not to Miami. So,
Yeah, it'll change at some point. You'll have other things, but all right. Well, thank you again, Rajuta, and yep, we'll wrap things up now. Thank you, everybody, and look forward to bringing you more episodes of Insights.